Welcome to the Grant Writing Simplified podcast. This is the place to learn how to make a big impact in your community through grant writing and nonprofit consulting. The world needs you to step forward as a grant writer and use your skills to lead with confidence. I'm Teresa Huff, former special ed teacher turned grant writer and nonprofit strategist. In my 20 years of freelancing, I've helped nonprofits triple their funding and exponentially increase their reach. Now I'm stepping up to mentor freelancers and nonprofit leaders like you who are ready to take your skills to the next level. It's time to get intentional about your vision so you can create lasting change in your community. Learn the skills and strategies you need to become the grant writer the world needs. Let's do this. Hey friends, the number one question I am asked by grant writers and nonprofits alike is, where do we start? Grant writing is a big process that takes a while to learn and develop. However, today I'm going to tell you one simple place you can start no matter where you are in the process, even if you've never written a grant before. And this is true for both nonprofits and grant writers. I thought of this because it came up last week in our small group coaching program, the VIP program that we're working through, and I thought this would be helpful to share with you all because it is such a common question, and this is one thing that you can do. Most grants will ask you for a lot of the same basic information, your mission, contact information, maybe even a list of your board members. By compiling all of this into an organized system, you'll save yourself a lot of time running around collecting it each time you have to apply. Your time can then be better spent on the application itself. So here are 6 types of information that you should keep on file and up to date for your nonprofit. This is true whether you're writing grants or not, and this is also true if you're the grant writer, whether you're a contractor or an employee. It's so helpful to have this on file. Number 1, always have your vision, your mission, and your core values. These should be accessible, and your mission should be visible throughout the organization, both in person and online. Post your mission statement on your website, your social media profiles, in your office, at the top of your board meeting agendas. Make it simple, clear, and visible. Number 2, keep important ID numbers, such as your tax ID number, your school code if you're a public school district, your DUNS number. DUNS, you may have heard of that. It's the Data Universal Numbering System. This is in the process of changing into a different system, but it's basically a way to identify each organization that is set up. Number 3, all your financial and tax documentation, such as your 501c3 approval letter, and note that this is not the same as your tax-exempt letter. Keep your Form 990 or your postcard if you aren't required to file a 990, your most recent audit if you have one, and your organizational budget and any program budgets that you might have. So keep all of that handy and keep the most up-to-date version on file. It's also good to have a couple of years back so you can pull historical information and look at trends as you need to. Number 4, you need to keep your board of directors list handy. This should include their name, their position on the board, contact information. Even it's helpful to have their occupation and any community affiliations that they're associated with. Most grants won't ask for this much detail, but it's good to have it on hand just in case. I have had 1 or 2 grants that do want some pretty detailed information about the board. And having it already on file is a lot easier than trying to chase people down and find out. Number 5, you need a secure place for your organization's logins. Have a safe place to keep these or use a tool like LastPass so that you aren't digging through old notepads trying to find that password. And this can include logins for grant applications, grant reporting websites, if you have an online fax system, your website hosting, social profiles, anything like that. Speaking of website hosting, my favorite host by far that I've used for several years now is A2 Hosting. I'll link to that in the show notes if you want to check them out, but I highly recommend their customer support is fantastic. And number 6, basic organization information. This might sound obvious, but you'd be surprised how many times you have to type your address, phone number, fax, if you still have a fax number, email, director's name, and their contact information, all that basic stuff. You'll be surprised how often you have to enter it, and it's helpful to have it handy to cut and paste instead of typing it out every single time. Plus, that leaves less room for error, which is always a good thing. So there you have 6 types of information to keep on file, keep them organized and up to date. That may sound really simple, and I know that's pretty basic and practical today. It's super helpful, and if you ever do hire a grant writer, or as the grant writer, when it's time for you to fill out an application, you'll thank me that you have this stuff already on file. And as the grant writer, make sure to check in every now and then to make sure nothing's changed. Sometimes board members come and go, or their positions change. The mission might shift. There are things that you may need to update. So make sure that you have the most recent file. You don't want to be sending out applications with outdated information. This isn't a magic trick that will write the grant for you, and it's not a way to learn grant writing overnight. However, it will make your life so much easier later. It's like having a well-stocked pantry that you can pull from when you decide to bake a cake, instead of making a separate trip to the store for every ingredient. A little preparation ahead of time saves you lots of trips to the store. You can grab a download of this checklist at teresahuff.com/prep, P-R-E-P, and I'll email you a printable copy for your reference. That's at teresahuff.com/prep. I'll link to all these resources in the show notes. In the meantime, reach out anytime you guys have questions. I love hearing from you. Send me a message. Let me know how things are going with your nonprofit or with your grant writing. Thanks, friends. Have a good week. If you love this show and you learned something new about being the type of grant writer the world needs so you can create a ripple in your community, please go leave me a review over on Apple Podcasts today. Thanks for listening. Now go change your world.